Terra family. How is everyone? Thank you for that warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be with you here today and to be able to take just a few moments to share with you about my favorite essential oil, Copaiba. Now, since the discovery of the endocannabinoid system in the 1960s, there's been a great excitement about molecules and substances that can interact with this system and activate it and produce a physiological response in the body. And two of the most studied of those molecules are beta-caryophyllene from Copaiba and CBD. But I'm going to share with you how Copaiba does some things that CBD can't. And so why it's one of my favorite essential oil. So because they work within that same system, people naturally want to compare them. But I tell you that it's not really a fair comparison. And the reason I say that is because Copaiba is the essential oil that's extracted from the Copaiba resin, from the Copaiba trees and the resin they produce. Whereas CBD is a plant extract that comes from the cannabis plant, which is often mixed with a carrier oil like an olive oil. So they're both valuable tools and have a place in your wellness toolkit, but the reality is that Copaiba has some advantages and has some benefits that we maybe can't achieve with CBD. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that the FDA is still currently evaluating CBD's place and determining its long-term effects when we use it cumulatively, as well as its effects in some special populations like the children, the elderly, and women who are pregnant and nursing. So we still have some more to discover about that. Before we have this discussion, it's important that we understand what the endocannabinoid system is. This is a system of enzymes and receptors and molecules that helps to maintain homeostasis. Dr. Hill just explained to you really well what homeostasis is. So what this does is this system helps to stabilize the body so that we can have greater periods of homeostasis. It predominantly has two receptors. The first is called CB1. These receptors are found within your central nervous system or your brain and your spinal cord, but they're also located in other areas of the body, such as your eyes and your blood vessels. Now, the other receptors are called CB2. CB2 receptors are predominantly found within your immune system and immune-related organs, such as your spleen and your tonsils. But this receptor is not just found within your immune system, it's actually found throughout the body and in major organs such as your heart and your liver and your lungs. So because of that, it can widely influence our body as well. Now, there are molecules that can interact in this system, and I'm going to talk to you about three groups of these molecules, and the first are called endocannabinoids. These are cannabinoids that are naturally produced within your body, and they are meant to interact with these receptors that we just talked about. In addition, you will find phytocannabinoids. Now, these are found within and produced by plants. So these are in the plant kingdom. We know that cannabis has cannabinoids within it, the plant does, but it's not the only plant that has cannabinoids. We've actually now identified several plants, including things like liverwort and black truffles, and even the cacao plant that have cannabinoids within them. And then, of course, essential oils that carry beta-caryophyllene within them, like melissa and black pepper, and of course Copaiba, which has the highest percentage of this beta-caryophyllene within it. Now, the third group are synthetic cannabinoids. These are produced by man in a laboratory, and they were originally produced so that we could better study the endocannabinoid system because they have a strong ability to bind to these CB1 and CB2 receptors within the system, which allows us to better study the structure and function and activity and location of these receptors. So that's why they were created. The last part of this system are the enzymes, and the enzymes help us maintain optimum levels of those endocannabinoids that our body naturally produces. And they do so by creating endocannabinoids from fatty acids that are within our body. Now, if we have higher levels than the body needs to use at that time, then they will actually degrade them back into a fatty acid so that the fatty acids can be used elsewhere within the body. So now we get down to some of these advantages that I promised I'd share of Copaiba. Number one is the direct activity on the CB2 receptors. Beta-caryophyllene selectively and directly binds to and activates the CB2 receptors within the body. And so when it does so, you get more rapid cellular effects because of it. On the contrary, if you look at CBD, it really doesn't have a good ability to bind to either CB1 or CB2 receptors. And so it doesn't have a direct activity, it has an indirect activity, and you can anticipate slower cellular effects within the body. Price is another huge factor because if you go out onto the open market and you buy CBD right now, you are going to pay thousands of dollars per kilogram for it. So it makes it very expensive to get a beneficial dose into your body. On the contrary, Copaiba is very affordable and costs less for a beneficial dose. Now, I want to emphasize this third point because it's really important, and Dr. Hill alluded to this already with the analytics that he talked about. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2017 tested multiple CBD products available on the market, and they found that 69% of the products on the market did not have the concentration of CBD in the bottle that was on the label. So in other words, we have an adulterated or a mislabeled CBD product 69% of the time. Now, even more alarming, the same study found that multiple of those products actually had higher levels of THC than are currently allowed according to federal regulations, some of which were high enough that they could produce a mind-altering effect in certain individuals. So there's a purity issue that we have to consider. Some other advantages, safety is another one. When you look at the safety of CBD, it's being investigated in clinical trials. And as scientists and medical professionals have investigated it in clinical trials, what they have noticed is that the people receiving clinical doses used are experiencing elevated liver enzymes. Now, what does that mean? That means there's a potential harm to the liver occurring because of them taking that CBD. If you look at beta-caryophyllene instead, it's generally considered safe, non-toxic, tolerable, and has a very wide safety margin. Now, another thing, legality. Dr. Hill mentioned this too, but legality, even though the federal government has relaxed some of the legislation or the regulatory environment for CBD, some states still have more stringent and strict regulations in place, making there a conflict between the state and the federal governments. And the FDA currently, because they are still completing their investigation on the safety and the effects of CBD, has not created a regulatory path for CBD to be sold on the market yet. Complexity is another thing that we can talk about as an advantage for Copaiba. When you extract Copaiba essential oil from the resin, you generally end up with about 100 compounds within that oil, almost all of which is sesquiterpenes. If you extract CBD from the cannabis plant, you will end up with a total of about 32 compounds, and it's almost entirely CBD with only trace amounts of the other 31 compounds in it. So this greater complexity means we have an ability to have a more diverse and complex effect on our wellness with Copaiba. Now, the other point is pathway. Copaiba and beta-caryophyllene don't exclusively work within the endocannabinoid system. In fact, because of the study that's been done on this great molecule, we know that it works on multiple pathways, genes, cell receptors, and proteins found within the body to affect our overall well-being. And I'll talk about some of those here in just a moment. So I want to talk about CBD because I'm not saying that CBD is not a tool or not a good thing for us to have available. But what I'm saying is it's not used without some limitations. The indirect activity of CBD means that you can expect slower cellular responses. In fact, because CBD does not bind really well to either one of the receptors within the system, it tends to act more as a helper molecule that signals the endocannabinoid system to work more efficiently, and in some cases helps to modulate our responses to other molecules that do directly bind to that. So that leaves us with an indirect and slower response and activity. Now, the other thing I just want to mention that's a limiting factor of CBD that we know is in humans, when they ingest CBD, we tend to absorb only 6% of what we ingest. And so if you were to take 100 milligrams of CBD, you actually are excreting 94 milligrams of that CBD and only absorbing 6% into your bloodstream. So that's a lot of waste. Now, the CB2 receptors have become a major target to regulate immune and inflammatory responses in the body because they are located abundantly in our immune system. But that doesn't limit their effect there, because these CB2 receptors are also located within our digestive tract and in major organs of the body and in the bones and the muscles. When we have a substance like beta-caryophyllene that can directly activate these, it helps to regulate and promote healthy brain, musculoskeletal, cardiovascular, digestive, and overall cellular function within the body. So here's where I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the pathways, the genes, the receptors, and the proteins that we know beta-caryophyllene works on outside of the endocannabinoid system. Those that are involved in our overall cellular health. Those that help regulate our inflammatory response. And I want to pause and just explain that for a minute, because sometimes when I say we want a healthy inflammatory response, people look at me and go, I don't want any inflammation in my body. But the reality is, if you did not have inflammation in your body, you'd be dead. Because we have to have inflammation for our immune system to work properly. We have to have inflammation for wound healing to occur properly. So we want a little bit of inflammation, but we just want to maintain that healthy range and a healthy inflammatory response. We can also promote healthy organ function. We can promote body comfort. That's a huge thing that we use Copaiba for. Many of us have realized those benefits. It helps to support memory function and cognitive function. How many of us here want to keep our cognitive abilities and memory function as long as we can? I'm sure we all do, right? It's involved in pathways that help to maintain lipid regulation. It helps influence our cellular antioxidant defenses. In fact, it activates one of our major intracellular antioxidant defenses called NRF2 that helps protect us against cellular damage caused by free radicals, and also is involved in the longevity of our cells. And when we use, we also know that it will improve virtually almost all body functions, because proteins are a major component of cells. And beta-caryophyllene interacts with the expression of multiple proteins found within our body. Now, I wanted to briefly mention that scientists have already started to investigate now other essential oils and how they might influence the endocannabinoid system. Those that don't have any known any known phytocannabinoids, or have very small quantities of beta-caryophyllene. One example of that is lavender. Recently, scientists discovered that lavender inhibits the enzymes that break down or degrade those endocannabinoids our body naturally produces. So what does that mean? That means more of them are available to the body for the endocannabinoid system to use. Now, I'm convinced as scientists to continue to evaluate essential oils and how they work within the endocannabinoid system, we're going to find a diversity of essential oils that will affect this influence, activate it or influence it, and will do so in a diversity of ways. So I know I've talked a lot about the science of what Copaiba and beta-caryophyllene do. So what's the takeaway? What does this mean, right? What does this mean for us? Well, first, we know that it's going to support a healthy inflammatory response in the body. It's going to aid cardiovascular, immune, digestive, brain, and respiratory system function. It's going to reduce worrisome thoughts. Anybody ever have worrisome thoughts? Well, one of the ways I found that this works really well is to put 1 or 2 drops just directly under your tongue. That's a great way to help reduce maybe some worrisome thoughts. Maybe some of us speakers maybe want to be putting Copaiba on our tongue right before we come out, right? It improves the appearance of I've skipped one. It supports healthy female reproductive function. That's something that we're just beginning to understand, but has huge potential. When we apply it topically, it helps to reduce the appearance of blemishes and improve the appearance of the skin, and help restore stressed skin as well. Another huge benefit of Copaiba is that science shows us that it improves the absorption and the efficacy of other lipophilic molecules. Well, what are essential oils? Lipophilic molecules. So in other words, we can use Copaiba to enhance the benefits of our other essential oils we use topically by improving their absorption through the layers of the skin, and then the benefits that we receive after they get into the body. And if we want to diffuse it, we can create a calm and relaxing environment as well. So the bottom line is that Copaiba, when it's used daily and on a regular basis, helps you live a longer, healthier life with greater periods of homeostasis. So I really appreciate the opportunity I've had to share with you. I look forward to meeting you and to partnering with you so that we can help improve the health of generations to come through doTERRA's amazing products. Thank you so much.